Hello, 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 and welcome back to yet another college football video. Listen, man, this yet again, two videos in a row. I was not expecting, preparing to make whatsoever. Um, I haven't made a college football video in it feels like months at this point. But I had to talk about one of the craziest off-season situations in college football history, really. Tennessee and Josh Heupel effectively just kicked their starting star quarterback off the team because he was holding out. Let me repeat myself. Because he was holding out of mandatory practices for a new contract. A college football player was holding out for a better contract. Yes, you heard me correctly. Uh, a terrible sentence that most people thought would never be said in regards to college athletics. But that's the reality of the situation. And let me do this: clap it up for Tennessee, clap it up for Josh Heupel because they put their foot down. They did not cave in, and they showed Nico the door. And let's talk about this, man, because you hear a lot in politics about like an 80-20 issue, meaning that like the wide majority of people agree on a certain issue. This is like a 95 to 5 issue where it's like if you agree with Nico in this situation, you're objectively wrong. And I've heard several people say things like, well, you can't blame a guy for trying to get what he's worth. No, I can blame the guy because let me break it down for you. He was getting paid far more than what he was worth. Nico got millions of dollars before he ever took a single snap in D1 football. He got paid this money when he was still in high school. He had to do nothing. He did not earn this contract whatsoever. He proved nothing at the college level, and he was given, he worked millions of dollars because of what he accomplished in fucking high school. There are hundreds of players in high school who have crazy stats, crazy resumes, and they don't get millions of dollars out the gate. Nico did. All right. That's important to mention right there. And let's just talk about Nico's career for a little bit. So last season, well, season before last season, he only started one game. I think it was the bowl game against Iowa. He had a solid game, but it's fucking Iowa. The Tennessee beat him like 40-0, right? So it doesn't really count. So he did nothing his freshman season. And so coming in to his second season, right? Keep in mind, the guy had already made, plural, millions of dollars for starting one bowl game against Iowa. That's what he had done so far, and he had earned millions of dollars. Now, let's talk about the 2024 season right here, which is just crazy to think about here. Let me read the stats for you. I'm going to read out 6 games. In my opinion, these are the 6 toughest opponents that Tennessee played all season. I'm going to read out Nico's stat line in all 6 of these games. 104 yards, 0 touchdowns against Ohio State. 167 yards, 0 touchdowns versus Georgia. 194 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception versus Alabama. 169 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception versus Florida. 158 yards, 0 touchdowns versus Arkansas. 194 yards, 1 touchdown versus Oklahoma. If you weren't keeping track there, that is a combined 2 touchdowns in those 6 games that Nico threw. And he's not some otherworldly talent with his legs. Okay, so I didn't even bother including the rushing numbers because they weren't impressive. So that's what he did. That's what Nico did in his. Keep that in mind, guys, because this is very important when we get to the part where he asks for more money. That is what he did. That is his body of work. When the going gets rough, Nico is useless. For lack of a better word, if you have 0 touchdowns in 4 out of your 6 toughest games and you never break 200 yards in any of those games, brother, you're useless. Let's call it how it is. There are 2-star, 1-star players that would have had at least one 200-yard performance, that would have had at least more than 2 touchdowns in those 6 games. Let's call it like it is. So Nico, entitled, spoiled as he is, comes in doing nothing, receiving everything, receiving millions of dollars, receiving all the praise in the world, all the respect and admiration, and all the boost and love from his coach and his teammates in the program. All of this treated like a superstar by the fans as well. The Tennessee fans hyping Nico from the moment before he even signed with Tennessee. Like all of this was given to Nico before he earned it. And when it came time for him to prove himself, he failed miserably. there's a strong case to be made that Nico was not just one of, but the most disappointing player in college football last season. Think about what I just said. The most disappointing player in the country, making just about more than anybody else. And what does he do? Is there some humility involved, some accountability, some responsibility? Is there a public apology for how poorly he played on the biggest stages time in and time again? No. He tries to hold his team hostage and demand more money, or else he will leave in the transfer portal. And this is why I say it's a 95-5 issue. After hearing all of that, I do not know how you can side with Nico in this situation. He is spoiled, he's entitled, he's ungrateful, he's greedy. What else can I even throw? And he's delusional. Delusional. Brother, you might have been one of, if not the worst starting quarterbacks in the SEC last year. Because let me tell it like it is. People bring up Nico's stats. Brother, I don't care about 4 touchdowns against Chattanooga. Okay? I don't care about how many yards he had against UTEP. I'm sorry. The majority of Nico's touchdowns, and I mean this, the majority, came against fucking NC State, Chattanooga, UTEP, Vanderbilt. These are his big performances. And I already read out to you what he did in the big games. Nothing. Literally nothing. 0 touchdowns, 0 touchdowns, 0 touchdowns, 0 touchdowns. So, and a lot of this comes to the point now where I have to bring up his team around him because I've heard a lot of things. Apparently, his dad is like the LeVar Ball type, except his son is not good at his sport. Um, so apparently he has some sort of management family involvement where they're pressuring him to do this or do that. I don't care, brother. The man is 20 plus years of age. Okay. He is make keep in mind, 20 plus years of age, or yeah, around there, probably 20 something, making in the top 1 or 2% in the world in terms of the amount of money he's bringing in. I don't care how many voices you have around you. You have a certain amount of responsibility to be able to make decisions on your own. And the fact that he thought that this was the route to take after the terrible performance he had last season blows my mind. It's shocking to me. And this also is where Tennessee has to take some of the blame here because they made the decision. I heard Coach Prime talking about this a while ago that if a kid if their first if the first thing they bring up is money instead of football, then he has no interest in them. And that would be my philosophy as well. If a guy is more focused on the money they'll make in college rather than the money they'll make in the NFL, that's a red flag for me. I don't want that guy. I mean, let's talk about what the opportunity is to go and play for Tennessee in the first place, right? They've put back-to-back quarterbacks in the NFL before Nico even got there. Well, I guess Joe Milton while Nico was there, but it's like they've shown a trend of success the last couple of years. I think everybody knows what kind of opportunity it is to start for one of the premier programs in the SEC. But that wasn't enough. You need millions of dollars before you even take a snap on the field. And listen, I'm not going to blame a guy if you have the opportunity to take millions of dollars before you even play a snap, then take it. All right, I'm not going to blame a guy for that. That is Tennessee's fault. That is the world of college football's fault, right? What I can blame Nico for is the extreme lack of just insight. I mean, just anything. How do you not know how poorly you played last season? It's you. How are you so overestimating your own ability and your own performance? Because this is the thing. Nico was making millions of dollars, right? And then he approached Tennessee demanding, I think there were different numbers around there, right? But Nico was approaching Tennessee asking for at least 1 million more dollars than what he was already making. That is such a bold, greedy, disrespectful. And here's the thing. He did it while team practices were going on. He did it when the spring game was about to take place. Like maybe this is a conversation. Apparently he was doing this like while they were playing in their playoff games against Ohio State. So his priorities are all the way messed up. They're all the way messed up. He doesn't know. He doesn't get it. That right. He clearly thinks, in my opinion, I think after last season, he kind of knew that the NFL was a long shot at this point, just based off how he was playing. So I guess his team and him were trying to think of maximizing the amount of money that he could get in the college level. But brother, shout out to Tennessee because they didn't cave. And let me tell you, this would have been a massive domino effect. If Tennessee caved in and just gave Nico, rolled over and gave him however much money he wanted after a terrible performance, Brutal. Absolutely brutal. But they didn't, thankfully. They put their foot down and they told Nico, you're not even worth the money we're giving you now. You think you're gonna get a raise for what? You should get fired. And they did fire him. Congratulations to Tennessee. And here's the thing, man. When it comes to some of the messages I've said or I've heard about players getting what they're worth and or getting the money that you deserve, he doesn't deserve it. He's not worth this money. Not even close. Reggie Bush was worth this kind of money. Jadeveon Clowney was worth this kind of money. Michael Crabtree, Johnny Manziel, the real stars of the game deserve to be making the money that Nico's making. Not Nico. He is overrated, overpaid, hyped to the moon, blown out of proportion. All of this, he was gifted all of this praise and all of this money and fame before he did anything. And he crashed and burned. And this is the result. This is the result of focusing more on the money than actually improving as a player. And let's talk now about listen, because I've heard some people from Tennessee, right? First of all, let's talk about the Tennessee fans switching up in an absolute instant. They were hyping this guy for literally years, at least 3 years consecutively, hyping him to the moon. And the moment he wronged them, they switched in a second, and now apparently he's mid. He's a bum. He's a bust. He won't do anything. So it's like it's clear that they are just completely blinded by their immediate emotions, right? And some of them are actually trying to say now that like they're better off without him. First of all, I'm happy for what Tennessee did. I'm glad that Josh Heupel kind of kicked him to the curb, but let's not pretend that Tennessee is better off for this. They are in a desperate quarterback situation now at the moment. Their only two options are both guys who have never taken a snap at the college level. Okay, they are going to have to try and tamper to get another quarterback out of pretty much just pry another quarterback from some other team because the only guys in the portal are guys who are worse than Nico. So no matter what they're downgrading at quarterback, it's just trying to, I don't know, brace themselves for impact, if you will. But yeah, Tennessee, their win total was like 9.5, I think. It must have dropped at least a game and a half. If Tennessee wins 8 games next year, that's a good thing, honestly, because I mean, they because the whole offense was built around Nico. And let's keep in mind, guys, they already lost the best player on their team, Dylan Sampson. The second best player on their team, James Pierce. He actually might have been the best. So they lost their two best players. Now you lost your starting quarterback. Tennessee, I could honestly see a crash and burn scenario for them next season. Because let's bring this up, right? You think about all the teams, right? These are all the teams in the top 15 last year who are now replacing their previous quarterback. Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Ole Miss, Miami, Notre Dame, Indiana. Now Tennessee. Tennessee had an advantage over these other teams where, yeah, Nico's not good by any, stretch of the word, but at least he's experienced. At least they're bringing back the same guy. Now they're just in the mix with all these other teams who are scrambling to replace somebody from last year. So Tennessee, while I am happy that they put their foot down and made a decision that benefits all of college football, in terms of them, they're going to feel the pain of that this year. Tennessee's quarterback situation is now very concerning. And I'm not going to say 2024 is a wash, but their chance of making the playoffs went from like 25, 30% to about 2%, in my opinion. Now, Tennessee is now an entire tier lower than what they were when they had Nico. I'm not even sure if I put them in my top 25 at this point in time. They just lost too much and they have nothing proven, especially on offense for me to even look at that and give it any sort of opportunity. So Tennessee is now just dead on arrival, if you want to put it like that. And let's talk about Nico for a second because he grossly overestimated what he was worth. He grossly overestimated his ability, and now he has been kicked off the team, entering the portal. And let's keep in mind, guys, this is a guy that skipped practice, skipped mandatory practice. This is a guy that was known as a leader, at least within that building, a leader who sets the example of skipping practice, holding out for more money. Me personally, I don't see any this is the thing. Any program with some self-respect wouldn't touch this guy with a 10-foot pole. However, let's talk about some teams that I think would take a chance on him. USC is the first one. I mean, Lincoln Riley, he is pretty much one bad season away from getting fired, in my opinion. His last quarterback project, Miller Moss, failed miserably. He is now off the team. They have some guy, I think it's like Jordan Mavia or something like that. I don't know. Nico's from the West Coast, so most of my options are going to be on the West Coast here. I think I think USC would take a chance on Nico. I'm sure Nico would like to play for USC. I mean, it's without a doubt USC is the biggest name, the biggest brand that you could go play for. But here's the thing: most of these teams, like because Nico wants millions of dollars, right? Most of these teams at this point in the season have already allocated their given amount of NIL money to spend on players. Like that's already out the door. So Nico, no matter what he does, he is not making what he wanted to make next season. I would say he's going to take a pay cut because of this. He played himself. He just lost himself millions of dollars, in my opinion. So he's going to have to go take a pay cut wherever he goes, in my opinion. So USC, I think, is the most likely option. UCLA would be the second choice, I think, just because they're like the little brother to USC. Obviously, they are just not as good of a program, and that's saying a lot because USC is not a good program right now. UCLA is a step below that. Even they had like a surprisingly not terrible season last year, but they get no hype, no attention at this point. So I think, I mean, it's a Power Four option, right? Because there's not that many, honestly. So yeah, UCLA maybe. I've heard a lot of talk about Texas Tech. I'm not sure about that. I don't know their quarterback situation. They had a pretty good season last year, so I mean, Big 12 football. I mean, I'm not. That's just a name I've heard thrown out quite a lot. So maybe that's an option. I think Florida State honestly makes a lot of sense because you want to talk about a team, a program that has no self-respect, nothing at the quarterback position. Pretty much, Florida State has nothing to lose, right? That's the reason I throw their name out there. You can't get worse than one Power Four win, right? So, I mean, and they clearly value the portal more than actually recruiting high school players. So they're another option. I think Syracuse is really interesting for two reasons. One of which, well, three reasons. One of which they had a really good season last year. They're losing their starting quarterbacks. They have a hole to fill at the QB position. And the most interesting reason, if Nico was this type of guy that had some sort of any sort of competitive nature, fire to him, they do play Tennessee week 1. So that would be a massive moment and game in the season if Nico went to Syracuse. And here's the thing: if Tennessee can't figure out their quarterback problem, especially by week 1, Syracuse won 10 games last year. It is in Tennessee, right? But I could see like Nico on Syracuse pulling off that win over Tennessee. I mean that would be insane. Tennessee fans would probably riot if that happened. But yeah, man, I just wanted to make a quick video, a quick rant, if you will, because this situation it really made me mad, right? Because Nico just lost all the support he had. He made a grave miscalculation of his own abilities, how much control he had over the program, and he's definitely shocked right now. This is not the result that Nico wanted. I can promise you that. Um, so yeah, and that makes me happy because he's a piece of shit. At this point, like you can't feel sorry for him. I don't feel bad for him. I don't like him. I dislike him. I will be actively rooting against him at this point just because he's ungrateful. He had an amazing opportunity. He was in the top 1% of college football players ever in terms of the amount of money he was making. Probably the top 0.1% if we're being honest with each other. And that wasn't good enough for him. And this is the thing: it wasn't good enough for him on top of him playing terribly. That's the thing. If Nico was out here lighting teams up and he was one of the best, then it's a different situation. But he was terrible and demanded a raise. That just rubs me the wrong way, man. So leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.